Niklsun here, and welcome back to Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. I know I've been gone for a little bit, but work's just been crazy. I'm trying to get back to a regular schedule here, and my living conditions are actually going to be changing fairly soon, so once that happens, it'll be pretty much back to at least 3 episodes a week. But next week, or either later on this week or next week, I'm going to start to get back into the regular news stories. I have one that I want to cover today, but so this is going to be in 3 different installments. I have 3 stories that I want to talk about, 2 of which aren't even really stories. They're more topics, and it's been things that have really been bugging me, things that I've been getting a lot of comments about, and things that I personally feel that a lot of people are just misinformed, and it's not their fault that they're misinformed. It's because of... I'll get into it here in a second, but my first story is going to be about all this reshoots nonsense, and basically going in and describing what it is, what the definition of a reshoot is, because the problem that I have is that reshoots has been used as a blanket term, and it's not the case. Reshoots has a stigma against it right now. It has a negative terminology with it, because they feel that when they hear reshoots, that means that, oh, something's not working and they need to go redo it. But that's not always the case, and that's what I'm here to clean up. So I'm just going to get into this one right now. So, reshoots, which is the blanket term. So when people use reshoots, and they mean reshoots, what they are meaning is that either after they've watched the dailies or they've done an assembled cut of that scene, not a final cut, but an assembled cut, they go through and they see either, okay, this performance isn't working, the lighting isn't working, the shot was out of focus, this, that, the other thing. There could be lots of different reasons as to why they need to go in and reshoot a sequence. Sometimes it's also just the pacing. It's once they edited it together, they realized, okay, we need an extra little beat here, we need a little beat here, we need this here, we need to do this, we need to do this. So if we go in and pick up all of these, it would take this long, whereas if we spend an extra hour, we can reshoot the whole thing and make it work very fluidly. And then they'll go, okay, and they'll budget in. By the way, I should preface this. And this, hopefully most of you already know this. On big films, on everything that has more than, I think the magic number would be around between 50 and 60 million for a budget, for a production budget, not including marketing and P&A. For a production budget of 50 to 60 million or higher, they schedule in reshoots. Now, the bigger the budget, generally speaking, and also the bigger the film, the longer the reshoots are going to be. Now, again, and I'm even using it now as a blanket term. And I don't mean that they're going in and refilming. This is for additional photography. And so they will go in and they will budget out and they will schedule out 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, sometimes 6 weeks. It depends. And now when they also say that, like, it was Rogue One is scheduled, I'm going to jump right to the end of this. Rogue One was scheduled for, I think they said, about 4 to 5 weeks of reshoots. Now, that is not 4 to 5 consecutive weeks. It's not every day. Okay. Now, there are certain actors, the reason that they had to go that long, it's not that it's doing it for 5 weeks. It's they're starting from June 1st and going until July 10th. Those aren't the exact dates, but I'm just using them as an example. And the reason that they're doing that is because, let's say Felicity Jones is available from June 1st until June 20th. And those are the only days that you can get her available for her reshoots. That was a time that she had scheduled in when she originally, her and her agents went over the original contract and said, okay, filming dates are going to be between this and this. And then after that, you're going to have about 3, 6, 8 months. And then after that, you're going to have maybe they're going to schedule in 3 to 4 weeks of reshoots. What are you available in this time? And then they will say, okay, I'm here, here, here. Okay, we'll lock in this time. And so then she'll go in and say, I have this amount of time. Let's get this dealt with. So then if they have other actors that are in scenes with her, but then those actors are also in scenes that they either need to reshoot, pick up, or do additional photography for, then they will also schedule those in at that time. But sometimes these actors are not available until, say, July 7th. And so they have 2 or 3 days that they can shoot, and they only need a little tiny pickup. So then they'll come in at that time. But there might have been a week in between shooting where no reshoots were being done. They were all in the edit bay. They were all in meetings. They were all in visual effects meetings. They were dealing with the music composer. They were dealing with, maybe they had reshoots in 2 weeks, or they had additional photography in 2 weeks, and they were dealing with the production designer, saying about how, okay, this set needs to just be addressed like this. But I'm going to go over a couple of examples here for you, okay? So first I'm going to list the definitions, and then I'm going to go over a couple of examples to show you what they mean by the additional photography and all that kind of stuff. So again, reshoots is when you take an I've just got something written down so it's a little easier for me. Reshoots is to take an already filmed sequence and refilm the same shots, or to combine previously filmed shots into a shorter segment. So when they, again, going back into the edit bay, they've got an assembled cut of that scene together. And then they say, okay, well, the scene's 1:41, and it's a little slow. Now, we could try cutting it together, but it seems a little jarring. What if, okay, this line of dialogue seems very similar to this line of dialogue, but we need both points to get across. Okay, what if we rewrote this? How does that look? Okay, that looks good. So then what they do is they take that assembled scene and then they will go and they will reshoot it to make it more efficient. Not necessarily because there's a problem with it, but because it's to make it more efficient. Now, usually when you reshoot a sequence, it is because there is some sort of issue that you just can't fix with editing. Whether it's, again, pacing, it might be a lighting issue, it might be a clarity issue. The budget might not be big enough in order to do visual effects removal of something in the background, so they just need to go and reshoot it. With it being digital as well, it's not like they're having to shoot on film. So it's not expensive, or as expensive, I should say, to go and reshoot something. So the next one after that is pickups or inserts. So this is another definition of reshoots. This is what they do during these times. And so pickups or inserts are to add a shot to an existing sequence. So while this is something that they would have wanted to do, but they didn't get a chance to, in the movie Blade Trinity, there is a sequence where Patton Oswalt is showing off to Jessica Biel and Ryan Reynolds, and at the time, Wesley Snipes, the new tech, and he shows off this new like lightsaber, weird lightsaber like bow and arrow or bow caster, and in that sequence, this is where they would have loved to have done pickups. The problem is that the actor wasn't really involved with the production at all. Wesley Snipes refused to come out of his trailer on that specific day, and he was involved in the sequence. So what they ended up having to do was, instead of doing pickups, because he and the director were feuding so much that they just couldn't do it, that the editors I can't even speak right now. The editors cleverly went in and found footage of him standing in a room that looked very similar to that from another sequence, and they cut him into the scene. Now, he doesn't talk in the scene. That's one of the reasons why it made it work. And they would look over to him, and he'd just be kind of looking off in the distance, or because he wasn't paying attention. And then they rewrote and redid the scene in a way to make sure that footage worked. Now, that, again, was pickups and additional photography, but a slight bit of reshoots there. But now we get into the main butt of what I have a problem with, which is additional photography. This is what they do a lot of the time. Additional photography is when the filmmakers look at an assembled cut of the film and see where there is room for more content, whether it's additional scenes, bigger battles, bigger action sequences, maybe it's even new characters. So this is where I'm going to get into a couple of examples, all right? So an example of a reshoot, there's two big ones. And the reason that I came up with this whole idea to do this story was because last week it was announced that James Wan, the director of the upcoming Aquaman, he just did The Conjuring 2, he did Furious 7, Insidious, the original Saw, he is fully reshooting the MacGyver pilot for CBS. Now, it's a little bit of TV information, but I don't care. I'm going to talk about it here. So that means that he is going through. They didn't like the pilot. They liked it enough to give it a series order, but they want it reshot. They're keeping George Eads, and they're keeping Havoc from the X-Men films. I'm drawing a blank on his name. I can see his face. He kind of looks like Alec. Anyway, you know who I'm talking about. And so they're keeping those actors. They're changing George Eads' character, but they're recasting everything else. They're reshooting everything else. They're writing pretty much a new story for it. I think they're going to keep the same story points, but they're rewriting the characters. They're rewriting their motivations and all that kind of stuff. Now, that is a reshoot. Another example of a reshoot, well, there's two actually. They tried to do another Exorcist movie about 10 or 12 years ago. And I think it was called Exorcist the Beginning. And they shot the movie. They cut it all together. And they were about to release it. And then the movie, basically, I guess the studio just had absolutely no faith in the film whatsoever. So what did they do? With the exception of the lead actor, which was Stellan Skarsgård, they went and reshot the whole movie. They got a whole new production crew in there. They got a new director. They got a new director of photography, a new lighting coordinator. Everybody was brand new, except for Stellan Skarsgård. And they reshot the whole thing. Now, you can go and actually watch both versions of the movie. But that is a reshoot. And then the final one, probably the most famous one in recent memory, World War Z. World War Z. Now, I'm Canadian. I hate saying the word Z or the letter Z. It's Z. I don't care. It's Z. But that was a little maybe a little angry there. But in World War Z, the sequence after they leave, I think it's Israel or Palestine. It's once they leave the airport. Once the wave of zombies come out and they get on the plane, they leave the airport. Everything after that was completely reshot. The whole third act of the movie was complete. It was rewritten. It was reshot. They came back like 4 or 5 months later. They reshot the whole ending. Now that's a reshoot. Okay. Now we get into additional photography. So Star Trek Beyond, the one that's coming out in a couple of months, next month. Star Trek Beyond. I'm going to have to do this in 2 parts, by the way, this video in 2 parts because I'm running out of time. Star Trek Beyond went out and added a whole new character. I can't even pronounce her name. Sharala. I'm gonna butcher. I'm not even gonna try it. The actress who was in A House of Sand and Fog. She was also on 24 season 4. Shirla Agdashlu, I believe. It's a rough pronunciation. But her character was added after principal photography was even completed. Now, that could have been that they rewrote a couple of sequences and took 3 or 4 characters and combined them into one. It could have also been that this was a scheduling problem. But this is additional photography. They weren't reshooting really anything. They were going in and adding a whole sequence to the film. You look at Suicide Squad, the new Suicide Squad movie that's coming out. Everybody who's invented, I don't know this 100%, but looking at the time that the movie's coming out, the fact that, you don't make a movie called Suicide Squad funnier. You give it a dark humor sense, and you put David Ayer in charge, who's somebody who has that sense already. And you go out and you make the best film possible, and then they look at the film and they say, what else could we do? And we'll add more action. And now it could have been that the third act of the movie was just lacking in a little bit of action, or maybe it was a little bit too hardcore and they needed to bring it back a little bit. That is entirely possible, and that would be classified as reshoots. But that to me is not a problem. That is just something where they're like, ooh, we went a little too far. We just need to rail it back a little bit. If we edit around it, people are going to see it. So we're just going to go in and reshoot it, make it very clean. That to me is the most plausible thing. So why Star Wars Rogue One is getting all this hate is beyond me. Coming out and saying that 30, 40, 50% of the movie is going to need to be reshot is asininely stupid. It's stupid. When World War Z announced that they were having to go back and reshoot, you know what they did? They delayed the frickin' movie. And that's World War Z. That was a $130 million film with no real franchise riding on it. This is Star Wars. This is Star Wars, okay? This is something that has an entire generation of fans, more than one generation. It has multiple generations of fans. They would not risk a movie getting to this point and having to go and reshoot 50% of it. I'm sorry, but it makes me laugh because it's so dumb. It's so stupid because they would have noticed on dailies. They would have noticed during the first assembly cut. They wouldn't have let it get this far. Holy hell. Rogue One finished shooting what? At the end of last year? They would have known by the end of last year that they were in this much trouble. So don't get even started with this needs this much reshoots. They're going in for additional photography. They're going in for pickups. It just is so stupid that people are freaking out about this. So stop freaking out about reshoots. It's a blanket term. It doesn't mean what you think that it means. So you can calm down when you hear that. Okay? I managed to get this, I hope, in one episode. So without further ado, I'm going to take off right now. So I hope you guys like this video and catch my social media links at the end of this video. If we hear more information about this topic, I'll definitely update you guys on here. Well, that'll about do it for us here on Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. Thank you so much for watching. You guys have been a great audience. Go ahead and click that subscribe button there in the bottom corner. You get updates whenever a new video is posted. You can also follow me on Twitter or Facebook at Niklsun, Niklsun, for all of your movie updates. And also like our Facebook fan page at facebook.com/movie news with Niklsun. If you ever have a topic or a question like I've talked about on the show, go ahead and email me at movienewswithniklsun@gmail.com or put a comment in the comment section. But until next time, you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.